Hello, my name's Paul and this is my Denix Replica MP44 or STG Sturmgewehr 44, and I posted it to a German reenactment group after I'd done some mods and got a lot of love, and I kind of mentioned that I might do a video on how I got it to where it is because I had a lot of questions, or like 3 questions, but whatever. When I started this, I searched online and I found some videos of some quite nicely modded ones. One guy had put like a K98 sight on here and a different stock and stuff. This is all Denix parts except the front sight guard, which is from a K98. I had that knocking around for the last decade in a drawer. So nice that finally got a use. I live in Sweden, so the only option I really had was to buy a Denix for a wall hanger. Other people can buy the GSG 9mm blank firer or a Shoei if you can find one. But yeah, for me, the Denix was only the really option. I thought about the AGM airsoft version, but then found out that the trigger guard's the wrong size and I'm not going to shoot BBs. I have other guns for shooting. But yeah, I promised to do a video on how I put this together and how I got the finish. I think it probably looks quite dark from this angle, but in some lights it's quite light, and I wanted that kind of late war Eastern Front patchwork look to the gun, which I think I achieved. But yeah, let's take it to the bench and I will explain how I got it to look like this. Okay, so you might have noticed that the rear sight is missing. I'm still yet to put some like knurling, so to speak, on the pressure, whatever they're called. So I haven't installed that yet, but that was the first thing I took off, and then I took off the bolt and sanded it down. I sanded the receiver, the foregrip, the gas block and the rear trunnion here with first 120 sandpaper, then 240 and then 500. Now, one thing I noticed that was quite important was that you wanted to be directional with it, and I tried to keep it horizontal the whole time. It took a lot of time to just get in all the little gaps. You can see some places here where I didn't quite get it, but I didn't mind about that really. It kind of adds a bit of kind of a grimy look to it. But I basically just spent a heck of a lot of time just trying to sand every single bit of the Denix factory finish away from those areas, just to get it clean of that stuff so I could then blue it. With this, I used Philips Professional Cold Blue, which worked pretty well. I've heard other people say that Birchwood Casey works pretty good as well. But one thing I realised is that after you've sanded it, it's just still too shiny even after you blew it. It didn't look like steel, so I rethought that, and what I did was I used basically white vinegar, etic spirit in Swedish, and I gave them a bath in the vinegar for about 15 to 20 minutes, and that changed it from the real shiny finish after sanding to quite a dull grey, which in itself would kind of maybe work for some parts as well if I was going to do another one. Some of the smaller parts, like for example, I didn't blue the bolt handle there. That's just purely sanding and the vinegar. The inside I blued just a bit, just to give it a bit of a darker tone. One thing I forgot to mention was that after I sanded with the 1000 grit or the 500 paper, was to use one of these dish sponges with the coarse kind of plasticky side and just go in like circular motions. It just gave it even less of a shine, and I did that before the vinegar. So it was 120, 240, 500 or 1000, and then a good buff down with this to get it as dull as you possibly could without the vinegar, and then it was the vinegar bath. For the larger pieces like the receiver, I put it in a plastic bag with the vinegar. Now it didn't quite work to just pour vinegar on it and leave it because it would evaporate. So you really needed to keep it kind of covered. The smaller parts I put in like a biscuit tin, plastic biscuit box that I got. Yeah, so that's how I got the finish, and then I blued it with this stuff after that process, and then I used some acrylic paint washes. Now these kind of doppely effects here, where it's a bit sort of brown, and you know that's from the vinegar and the bluing, but the slightly darker tones in this groove here, that's from an acrylic wash that I did on those parts. The foregrip I just gave more of a blue, and then after that I wanted to give it the kind of battle wear. So like this corner here, I figured we'd get a lot of wear, and in here where you would hold the gun when firing, and at the end of the foregrip. Now to speed up the process, I used another kind of sponge. These are really good for cleaning like furniture and stuff, like white goods. But what I did was I took a cotton bud, dipped it in vinegar, and then gave it just a wipe on the high spots, and just let that sit for just a few seconds, and then took this sponge and just kind of lightly rubbed it until it got the effect I wanted. And I did that on here and on these high spots here, along these ones. All of this wear here was done with one of these. I did try and go a bit faster with some 500 grit paper on these, and I think probably that might be necessary to get it down to some of the levels that I did get it. Just trying to think of what else there is now. Oh, I put the bolt handle in my drill to act like a lathe, and actually kind of filed that out because the original bolt handle just didn't have the correct shape for it to be, you know, like the real one. One other thing I did was I actually took the tip of it, like fine metal file. I tied the end of it around a piece of string, and then held the string here with my finger, and then kind of moved the file in like a circular motion to fake this kind of wear from the moving of the selector switch. I thought that came out quite nicely. I did try it originally with a wire wool pencil I have, but that didn't really work as well. But scratching it with the small file, I'll show you that, hang on. Something like this. I'm not sure this is the one I used, but I have a set of these. So I just, like I said, tied string around the end, right at the end, and then just, you know, moved it around in a circle from the point where it should rotate to give that impression of wear, because that's on almost all of the ones you see, the real ones. Now, as far as details go, I tried to add like dents here, here, places like this, and some other places. I mean, I whacked the thing with, I've actually got like a set of punches. Basically anything with tool steel, and it just kind of knocks it on the edge of things just to give the edge a bit of a roughness. Like you can see these 2, 3 little dings along here. And the same with on the back of the trunnion, that's filed in. The thing is, because it's Zamac, it's very brittle and hard compared to steel. It doesn't flow like steel when you strike it. So if I wanted to dent it, I had to file it in, and then I took it back to 500 or 1000 grit. And of course I did that all before I blued it. And then when I did the wear with the, you know, vinegar wash and then this thing, then, you know, it took it back, and there's a few darker areas in the bottom of the fake dents. But I just kind of put dents where I thought they might be. I think there's a few around here as well. One of the most difficult things I did was to add these weld spots here. And I did that with a Dremel tool and carefully went around in circles with it. That was a bit of a ball ache, honestly, but I think they came out pretty nicely. I could have done more, but they were quite time consuming. I put a few on here and a few on the other side of this this part of the receiver as well. I think it's just enough to, you know, just catch people's eyes that might know a little something about these, and maybe something about the Denix, because the Denix obviously doesn't have the weld spots. Regarding the gas block, I did the same thing I did with the foregrip and the receiver as far as the sanding and bluing goes, but I just kind of didn't blue it as much, so it would be a lighter colour compared to the foregrip. And then I had some chocolate brown. I'll put the roll number in the corner. But I basically mixed it with water and took a cotton bud, dipped it in, dabbed it on this paper here to just remove some of the paint, and then just dabbed it on. So you can see it kind of almost looks like rust. I noticed on a lot of the real ones that the gas block tended to be more tarnished than the rest of the gun. So I just did that just to mix it up a little bit. On the trigger group, I left the original Denix finish, but I just pulled it back on the edges with this and some sandpaper just to speed things up around the edges, and then used the sponge just to, you know, buff it back to a bit of a smoother look, so to speak. Paid special attention to where the selector switch a lot and the stuff that would be used. I did the same thing on the barrel. Yeah, this is the Denix finish, but I really went to town on it with this one, and the same with the gas tube and the stacking rod. And the magazine, I wanted to make it look like, you know, the gun had seen some time on the Eastern Front, but maybe they found a replacement magazine that was, you know, still in the oil. I put acrylic washes, brown mixed with red, to get like a rusty colour in the grooves there. I think you can just about see that. Just subtle, just to kind of catch the eye. A little bit more at the ends here and down at this end, and some down in this groove here and that groove there at the back. Just light washes. Same thing on here. I used the same paint I did on the mag and just went around in here. It's hard to see, but around in some of the grooves and around where the rivets and the pins would be on the real ones. And I think that is about it, other than the stamps. I got some Groz stamps on eBay and stamped in a fake serial number, put 44. I stamped in 44 on the mag. I stamped the buttstock. I think on the real ones where I saw it was more down here, but I don't really think it matters. For the woodwork, I smacked it around with a bunch of tools. I actually used the back side of a hatchet. Smashed it around, gave it special attention on the ends because I figured that's where it would have more. And I actually kind of dug the blade of the hatchet in there and just sort of chipped away some wood here and here. And here, just kind of like scraped it off like a knife and just pulled a bit off, pulled some chunks off. The metal work on the buttstock is done the same way as the other parts that I blued. Yeah, and I left some parts just in the Denix finish, like the magazine release button. I'll just flip it over. One thing I saw on a lot of the guns was that I don't know what this piece is called, but this part of the magazine release was dark on a lot of the ones I was looking at, so I left that almost just completely with the Denix finish because I figured it wouldn't get much wear, but I did wear the little dimple on there, and I wore all of the small Denix pins and stuff that actually do move. Just with this, didn't bother bluing it. I took really extreme care. I mean, you can see where I kind of didn't around here with the sandpaper folded up, just gently, you know, rubbing it. This took a lot of wear, so this was blued and then I pulled that back. I wore this back to make it look like the steel spring, but this is the original Denix finish as well, because I wanted that to be contrasting with the rest of the receiver, like it had been replaced at some point. Same with the top of the rear sight. This is fixed on this, but you know, that's removable on the real ones. Oh, one other thing I did was I drilled holes on the underside of the foregrip because it's missing the holes that the real gun should have. I mean, it's not perfect. It should have a groove down the center there on the real ones where the screws are, but you know, you can't have it all. I wasn't about to try and fake that. Yeah, you can get another view of the weld spots that I did there, and I put one here and a couple along there. You can kind of see the rust a bit better on this side now. It's closer to the window as well. But yeah, on the wood again, I just smacked it around, and then I used some wood stain that's dark and just, you know, brushed it on, rubbed it off, brushed it a bit more here, rubbed it off, and just kind of didn't want, you know, one solid coat. It does look kind of solid really, but I did sand that back with 120 first as well, but I didn't want to remove all of the old finish, or the Denix finish, because I still wanted these kind of red tones to come through, because the stain I used is more of a anthracite grey, so I didn't want to take away all that red tone. I did sand down these edges quite a lot because I figured that would get a lot of wear from the hand. Here you can see I actually used umbrella grey. I'll put the RAL colour up here. I bought spray paints from Germany. You can see some of the rust acrylic colour in that gap there. But yeah, again, I dabbed my cotton bud into the grey and just dabbed it on just to break up that Denix finish a little bit. So you can see that's kind of the original Denix finish in there, but this is kind of quite a lot of the grey. Kind of thought it looked a bit like parkerized. But yeah, I guess that's it. So I hope that's you know, useful for anyone that wants to do one of these. And yeah, good luck if you do, but it does take time. Just beware of that. Yeah, thanks for watching.